Hi, welcome back to Mr. Slover's Math. Today we're going to talk about finding the measure of an angle given two sides, and we're going to use trig to accomplish that goal. So our warm-up says we need to use our calculator and round to the nearest hundredth. So you are literally doing sine 35 equals and getting a decimal. Round to two decimal places. Tan of 45, spit out 1. Cosine 78, 0.21. Number 2 is asking you to round the following to the nearest whole number. So the nearest whole number, not something that we're used to doing, but nearest whole number. So I underlined the ones spot, and then I look to the number to the right of the one spot, which is the tenths spot. And if that's a 5 or higher, I add 1. So that is not, so it stays 78. This is 5 or higher, so I add 1, becomes 24. Add 1 because that's 5 or higher, becomes 35. And that's a 4, so it stays where it is. Okay, so our warm-up, we are focusing on rounding. Today, you are going to calculate the missing angle. And this blob right here is just how you're going to use your calculator. When finding the angle, you're going to use the inverse to undo the sine, cosine, and tangent functions. On most calculators, so notice it says most, it doesn't say all, you will press shift. But in red, some of you, your calculators may say second. So you'll have to hit that first and then the function, whether it's sine, cosine, or tangent. And any time that you solve for an angle, you have to use the inverse function. It's extremely important. That's why it's in bold. Probably something you should write on your reference sheet. So number 1, we're just practicing using a calculator. So given the following trig ratios, use your calculator to find the angle. Round your answers to the nearest whole degree. I even gave you a note that I don't want decimals. So when I saw this, it says cosine of x equals 0.7431. Well, that x is what I'm trying to solve for. I'm trying to find that angle measure because anything that follows the function is your angle. So in order to do that, I'm using what that little rectangle just said. I'm going to hit shift or second, depending on your calculator, and then the cosine button. It might look like this in your calculator. It might say COS and then raised to the -1 power. Not all calculators will do that, but most of them will. So I have cosine of -1, and then I just type in 0.7431 and I round to the nearest whole number. Letter B, same thing. I hit second or shift sign and I type in 0.3256. And there's what I get. So try C and D. Make sure you know how to use your calculator. Make sure you get those two answers. If need be, hit pause on the video so you can actually try it, and then unpause it when you have actually tried it and practiced using your calculator. Example 2 says, look at the triangles below. What do you see that is the same and what do you see that is the different? How would you solve? I'm hoping that when you actually look through this, you do notice some differences. So why don't you hit pause on the video and write out some differences, or maybe just circle what you know, and then you can unpause it when you're done. So I have answers will vary because this isn't the only thing. Maybe you noticed that they all had the same numbers. Maybe you noticed that they were both triangles. Maybe you noticed that the variable x is what you're using in both of them. Okay, all of those are valid. That's why it says answers will vary. I don't know what you are going to discover. I, as a math teacher, discovered that, yes, I'm using the same function, but I'm setting up my equations differently. So what I mean by that is my x on the first one is in the denominator, but over here, x is my missing angle. Right? So they're set up very similar, but they're not the exact same. It's because I gave you different information. So as we work through today, we're focusing just on finding the angle measure, but moving forward, you will get problems just like this, A and B, intermixed in one set of directions. So this first one, there's nothing for you to do. You're just following along. Our goal is to figure out what this missing measure is. In order to do that, just like we did in previous lessons, we are going to label the information that we know based off the angle that's not 90. So this angle is not 90. I know that because I already have a 90-degree angle. You cannot have two 90-degree angles in one triangle. Not possible. So I know that this is not 90. So I label from here, this is my hypotenuse, the 24, because it's opposite the right angle. And that makes this the adjacent because it's right next to it. So I have AH. Well, AH is my cosine function. So I have cosine of my angle, which is unknown, that's why the x is there, equals A over H, so 16 over 24. Since I'm solving for an angle, I have to make sure that I shift or I second it. So when I plug this in, shift cosine 16 fraction 24, or second cosine 16 fraction 24, depending on what your calculator is. You should be getting this. If not, then you plugged it in wrong, because we're assuming that your calculator is in the correct mode because you were able to do the warm-up and you had no questions on the warm-up. So you just plugged it in wrong, plug it in again. Ask a neighbor if you're stuck. YouTube, how to plug in a number on your calculator. And I want to round to the nearest degree, so that's the nearest whole number. So that would just be 48. So that missing angle is 48 degrees. So example 4. So sorry about that. I don't know what happened. And I don't know how to go back and fix it. So we're just going to move on. Like it didn't happen. So example 4, we're going to solve for the indicated angle. I'm reminding you that you're using the inverse because we don't know the angle measure. This is going to be on your reference sheet, or it already is on your reference sheet, so that may help you. Now, I also still wrote SOHCAHTOA up here because to me, as Mr. Slover, it's a benefit to me. So I'm labeling everything I know in relation to angle X. This is opposite. It's on the other side of X. And here's my hypotenuse. It's opposite the hypotenuse. So I have an O and an H. OH I have is sine. So my function that I'm going to be using is sine. So sine of X, because I don't know my angle, equals 27 over 40. And then you're going to plug that into your calculator. Shift sine 27 fraction 40. Or if you're having trouble and it's not working, maybe do shift sine and then parentheses 27 divided by 40. Maybe that'll give you an answer this time. I don't know. But when we round, we round and we get 42 degrees. Letter B. Same thing, identify or label what you know in relation to the angle that's not 90. So something that's opposite, something that's adjacent. I have 15 over 12, or I have a 15 and a 12, sorry. So I have tan of X. I don't know my angle, that's why X is there, equals 15 over 12. Second, tan 15 fraction 12. Or shift tan 15 fraction 12, or however you need to plug it in your calculator, round to the nearest degree, or the whole number, you should get 51. I would like for you to try letters C and D on your own, so please actually hit pause and try those. When you are done, unpause it and come back and see how you did. So once again, you're trying C and D. Okay, just kidding. I didn't realize there was E and F as well. So maybe you tried all 4. I have no idea. But you should have at least tried C and D. So for C, instead of an X, I'm using a theta, but it's the same concept. Label what you know. You should have labeled the 12 was the adjacent, 17 was hypotenuse. That means you were using the cosine function. So cosine of X equals 12 over 17. You should have got 45 degrees. Letter D, here's theta. So you have something opposite, something hypotenuse. That would be sine of X. That would be 17 over 30. Plug it in your calculator and you get 35. If you have not already tried E and F on your own, I would pause the video and try it. If you already did, try them on your own. Check to see if your answers match what I came up with. So today we are focusing on finding a missing angle measure using trig. So our steps were the same from the other day. Label your opposite or your adjacent or your hypotenuse from your given information, and then create your equation after you figure out your function and solve. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Otherwise, thanks for stopping in. Until next time.